Hello there, the story ninjas in the house. Or listening ninjas. Another story out of the Heartlines Read Aloud storybook called Stories That Talk. So many stories have messages and lessons. So let's find out what this one is all about. Have you ever seen a bird's nest? You have? Perhaps a bird's nest with little eggs and the mommy and daddy bird in it? You have, perhaps high up in a tree in the park or at school. If you're very lucky, you have big trees in your garden or nearby your home. Well, do you think it's a good idea to disturb those birds while they are nesting? No, perhaps not a good idea. Because when the parent birds feel that their nests have been too disturbed, they may fly away, and then the nest and the eggs are left uncared for. So they won't come back. They're a bit afraid that it's not safe. Well, let's see what the story is about. Topo's treehouse. But let's have a closer look. What all do we see from Topo's treehouse? From high up there, I'm sure Topo has a view, well, of the houses next door, even right down the street. But anyway, let's get started. Topo's Treehouse was written by Kopano and illustrated by Sally MacLarty. While Topo always looked forward to going home after school, because then he could play in his treehouse. And I'm sure if you had one, you'd want to play there too. And life was always very interesting from the top of his treehouse. Topo's father had built it high up in the yard's biggest tree. Big and strong. That's what it needs to be. Topo could see many things from the treehouse. He could see roofs with different shapes and colors, tall buildings far away and closer. He could see other trees and lots of small animals and birds. Sometimes he would take his books into the treehouse and read. It was good to read there because it was quiet with just the birds singing. So let's have a look again. What all does Topo get to see? I think he sees his neighborhood, immediate neighborhood, and then far into the city. Other times he just sat and he watched. He wondered how far the birds flew and what stories they were telling other birds about the distant places they had been, because we do know that birds fly north and south. One day Topo noticed a small pile of twigs on one of the branches that grew very near to his tree house. A dove flew into the tree and fluttered about. But it had seen Topo and was afraid, and it flew away again. So Topo crept to a branch on the other side of the tree and sat very still. The dove came back and saw that it was safe and piled on more twigs. When the pile was big enough, the dove settled on it. She looked very comfortable. And the next day, let's see what Topo finds. Yes, you guessed quite right. A nest with 2 eggs. The eggs were beautiful. They made Topo very happy. He knew that young doves would hatch out of those eggs. But as soon as he tried to see better, the mother bird flew into the tree away. Go away, she seemed to say. This is my tree house, thought Topo. Why should I go away? But Topo knew that he shouldn't or couldn't share his tree house with this dove. Oh well, I think he realized something, that maybe he should be doing the better thing and allowing nature to do its thing. But Topo knew that he couldn't share the tree house with the dove, so what do you think he did? Well, he thought it was the eggs or me, but he felt sad. He felt angry. He felt selfish. The treehouse was his place after all, and he didn't want to move out. So let's see those sad faces. And some angry faces. A selfish face. Let's see what Topo's face looked like. While Topo sat still and thoughtful on the back step, and Father came to sit next to him. Father knew about the nest and the eggs, and he seemed to know about Topo's angry and sad feelings. Ah, sometimes, Topo, said Father, we need to give things up for others who are not as strong as us. And sometimes we have to let the caring feeling be stronger than our anger, and stronger than our sadness for ourselves. Father hugged Topo and went inside. Topo sat still and thought about what Dad had said. Oh, Topo loved the beautiful eggs, but he knew that if he was in the treehouse, the eggs would not hatch. So he made a decision. I see some of you are shaking your heads because you've thought about it too. And I think you would have come up with the same decision as Topo. The dove could have his treehouse for as long as she needed it, and he would sit on a branch nearby to watch her. So Topo found a branch on the other side of the treehouse and sat and watched. He noticed that the dove never left the eggs for long. I think she just went off to get some food. Yes. She spent most of the time sitting on them to protect them. But one day while the dove was away, it became very, very windy. Oh, and the branches waved up and down from side to side. The dove was not at a nest, and Topo was worried that the nest would be blown away. He waited, and he waited, and he waited for the dove to come back. And suddenly a gust of wind blew one of the eggs out of the nest, whooshed it along the planks, and toppled it over the edge. Goodness gracious me! Topo looked down and saw these smashed eggs on the ground. He felt so horrible for this dove. And then just then the dove flew back and settled down onto the eggs that was left in the nest. And Topo sat for a very long time on the back step that afternoon. And once again, Father came and sat down beside him. Oh, Topo, he said, life is often unfair. We can't always understand why things happen the way they do, but it is good that they care. I know that one day you will grow up to be a good father too, who will love and protect his children. And together they sat and thought about the broken egg, and the little dove who sat bravely protecting the egg that was still in the nest. And each day, Topo came back from school, checked the nest to make sure that the egg was still there. And one day, as he peeked into the nest, he saw this little creature. Do you see it too? Well, he thought it was a very ugly little creature with a big mouth. It was small and no feathers. Topo slid down the tree and he ran to tell his father, because guess what? The egg had hatched. And after school each day, Topo sat and he watched the nest. The mother dove spent most of the time with her little dove, and it grew bigger and bigger, and it spent a lot of time flapping, flapping its wings, and I'm sure opening that mouth waiting for food. One morning, as Topo was walking out of the kitchen, he stopped suddenly. There was the little dove in front of him on the grass, trying very hard to fly. Topo was very excited, but he stood very, very still and watched. The little dove flapped its wings very hard and flew up into the air for a short distance, and then came down again. Topo followed the little dove across the yard and over the fence. The little dove tried over and over and over again. Just as Topo was getting tired, the little dove flapped its wings harder than ever and flew higher and higher. Oh goodness, this time it did not come down. Topo started running and he watched. He watched the little bird fly further and further and higher and higher. And he was so happy. He shouted and screamed with delight. It felt like he had just learned to fly too. Well, Topo did the right thing. He showed lots of compassion towards that mommy bird and her single egg. But look how excited he was when he saw this little chick grow up into a bird that finally got to fly. That's the end of our story. So until next time, listening ninjas, goodbye.